Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite. Here. Alderman Nguyen. Here. Alderman Wilson. Here. Alderman Holmes. Here. Alderman Tindem. Here. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Here. 8-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, September 26, 2011 meeting of the Evanston City Council. First item is Mayor's public announcements, and I wanted you all to know that I have asked the city attorney to work on a draft of a marijuana law that would be similar to Ann Arbor's, which would declare that 10 grams or less was an offense that you got a ticket, you would not have a permanent record. And so I'm making a reference to Human Services to please look at that once the city attorney has finished his work. Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor, is that for the sale or use or both?
It's the theory is that 10 grams is too little to sell, and so that would be only for someone's personal use.
How much is 10 grams?
Don't ask me that. That is not a fair question, and you are out of order. Alderman Fisk.
I don't know the answer to any of that, so I'm not. My understanding, and tell me please if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, isn't the possession of less than 30 grams, don't you have an opportunity to do public service and then it's expunged from your record after 2 years?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Clerk Green, Manager Bobkowitz, that is one of the provisions under the Illinois Criminal Code. However, the Illinois Criminal Code also has to be read in conjunction with recent amendments to the Juvenile Code, which also speak to possession by minors. So there's a number of different statutes that are in play besides just the city ordinance, and that's why I've indicated to the mayor that it's going to take some time for me to delve into that. The approach in Ann Arbor is one vehicle, and there's also other vehicles that have been utilized by Cook County as well.
Highland Park, I think, does that.
City Manager, do you have public announcements?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Just one announcement. If the council will recall, we had several folks here a couple weeks ago regarding roller skating at both Fleetwood Jourdain and at Chandler Newberger, and I'm happy to report that we have purchased roller skates. And so we are going in the roller skating business. We are happy also to report that through the efforts of Betsy Jenkins of our Parks, Rec, and Community Services staff, that we've had a donation of $9,000 to purchase skates by Sam McKinney of Best Taxi. So,
wow, that's wonderful.
If anyone would like to donate $6,000 more, that will cover our full cost of roller skates in Evanston. So we would ask any interested parties to do that. Otherwise, we will go to the CDBG committee and see if we can't get the money that way. It's our intention to begin the roller skating pending the delivery of the skates this week. We expect to start roller skating next weekend, so the weekend 7th, 8th, and 9th of October. So you can call 311 for more details. We'll also have information up on the website, but we are going to move forward with roller skating.
Alderman Rainey has a question.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Mr. City Manager and members of the council, are you aware that our city attorney has eliminated roller rinks as a legitimate use in the city of Evanston in one of his proposals tonight?
I read that.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that's with respect to a business license. That has nothing to do with this issue. That's the city manager speaking to.
He did.
That concludes my comments, Madam Mayor. Mr. Attorney?
It's a provisional code revision. It is not final. So it may be...
Along with a private application for a roller rink.
What we can do is, based upon the issues that are raised tonight, we will flag that and we will verify and indicate to the council whether or not the provisional code amendment speaks to that issue. I don't believe it does at this point in time. We will verify that. Again, that was just speaking to a general business license. It has nothing to do with what's the city manager is speaking to right now.
Thank you. City Clerk, do you have communications?
No communications, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next is citizen comment. Let's see, we have everybody has 3 minutes, but it would be wonderful if you didn't take all of that, because then we might be able to start the meeting before 10:30. The first 3 speakers are Junad Rizki, John Labby, and Claire Labby. Just go over and be ready to start. Thank you. And please give your name and address when you speak.
Junad Rizki. Seems to me the council and mayor should learn from recent national events and state events. The Solyndra loans and paying union officials pensions long after they leave government employment done by the state of Illinois officials are real failures of responsible government. When does incompetence cross the line to corruption and theft? I want to review something tonight that I view as incompetence. At the last council meeting, this council pushed through starting to negotiate a lease with youth organizations for the city recycling center. My issue isn't the use of the recycling center per se, nor letting the youth group use it. My issue is, what is the bottom line cost to taxpayers? Wally's Economic Development Group, and I say, did not seem to do a very good presentation. One of the options was to turn this over to developers, which seemed extremely expensive and made no sense. The staff's option to use it for salt storage was just as costly and made no sense either, given the fact the same staff messed up our yard waste stickers and the group contract for $1 million or more, which is a 2.25% property tax increase. The youth sport option does appear to be the least costly, but just listening to it, it appeared to me this would cost the taxpayers well over $75,000 a year, even after the lease was done and they were paying the rent. And that translates into about a 1/5% property tax increase. You need to do the numbers and have someone analyze this correctly, but that's what it appears to be. I find it interesting that one of the ideas is to raise recreational revenue when we're going to add maybe $75,000 back into the rec budget. To me, that's just not acceptable. We need to do better numbers here, and that's really where the problem lies. What really should have happened after this meeting, staff should have been told to go back and get final numbers from this group and put all the numbers together correctly to come up with a rational lease basis. And it was even unclear to me who were we negotiating with here to do this lease. This is just not acceptable, and I think staff might have come back and said, oh, we can't do this, we need to hire a consultant, which is very typical of what we do here because we're too busy. The other things tonight that I thought were interesting is we're going to do a grant for $250,000 for 2 solar collectors for 2 cars. Just because it's not our money, it's a grant, that doesn't even make any sense economically. The other thing I thought was funny tonight, too, is when the financial report was being stated of the city, one of the aldermen went, shh, let's not talk about it because we didn't put the right numbers in the report. I think we have plenty of things here we need to do a much better job on what we're doing here. And I really think you better go back and figure out what's going on with that lease with the rec center, that group there, before you do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, thanks for hearing my comments tonight. My name is John Labe, and I'm the owner of the residence at 1727 Harrison Street, which is 0 feet from the proposed planned development at 1700 to 1722 Central Street, which is the issue that I'd like to address this evening. I would like to make several points in the limited time that I have. Our initial point is that this is an issue that should have gone back to the Plan Commission for further hearing, and it's a violation of the due process rights of those who live near the planned development for it not to go back to the Plan Commission, where we'd have an opportunity to present evidence and cross-examine the witnesses presented by the developer for this project, and it's also a violation of the Evanston City Code. This is also the view of the Central Street neighbors and others that it should go back to the Plan Commission. Substantively, this project is not in substantial conformity with the original plan. The proposal now is to increase the number of residential units from 50 to 80 and to reduce parking from 100 to 81 units. Moreover, another substantial change is in the nature of the materials and the character of the building. Here on the left, I have the original plan that was proposed back in 2007. It's a building with a great deal of character, and it's a building with an entire masonry exterior. The entire front, sides, and rear is a masonry building, which is in keeping with the character of Central Street. The new proposal, however, has brick only at the two front corners of the building and features hardy fiber cement siding in the middle of the building, on the sides of the building, and the entire rear exterior of the building. This is not in keeping with the Evanston, Central Street, or anywhere else in Evanston. The hardy fiber cement siding is a newer product which is not well known what it will look like on a project of this nature. The developer has provided some pictures of other uses of the hardy fiber cement siding, and apparently this is the best they could come up with. One project on Morse Avenue in Chicago, one project in Maryland, and one project in Normal, Illinois. The hardy fiber cement siding may be common for single-family residences, but it's not commonly used for a large apartment building on a distinguished street such as Evanston in our town, such as Central Street in our town of Evanston. Just to point that out, here are some other examples of apartment buildings on that block of Central Street. Here's a view looking east at the other end of the block of Central Street. There's a 2-story brick apartment building, and there's a 3-story brick apartment building. Immediately across the street from the old theater site is a 4-story, all brick apartment building, brick on the front and on the sides. This is the side of that building and the rear. And on the other corner there's also another brick apartment building. Moreover, we've been told that, or it's been suggested that apartment buildings, perhaps, it's not economically feasible to build an apartment building out of brick. That does not appear to be the case, however, because here is the most recent Class A apartment building.
Sorry, I do need you to wrap up.
The most recent Class A apartment building built in Evanston is the Reserve, which is all brick. It even has a brick front facing the salt storage facility for the city of Evanston, yet we can't have a brick facade facing the back of our homes.
Thank you.
I'd also like to comment on the LEED certification, which I think is a red herring, the notion that the new Mather that's going up right now in Evanston, the new Mather project, rather, is going to be gold certified, and that's a brick building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Claire Lave. I'm speaking on the same issue. I also live at 1727 Harrison, so I'm right next to the planned development. I agree with everything my husband said. I'm not going to repeat as to any of it, though, but it is seconded. And please note, the neighbors in this, our neighborhood, we want a development. We want this property to be used. We'd like the retail space. We just think that this is perhaps not the best development that we could have, and it's not being done in a proper way for those of us who live close to the development who are going to be most directly affected to have a say in what's built there. And we specifically have some questions about the traffic and the parking. The development has basically a 1-to-1 ratio for parking, and they argue that that's sufficient. And one of the reasons they give is that they want to discourage multi-car ownership by apartment residents. And I understand that there's a very legitimate public policy purpose in discouraging too many cars, but that's not the current reality. And people aren't going to sell their cars if they move into this apartment building. The census data that the developer used to show that the census data that supports their position actually shows that in the neighborhood, the families have already more than one vehicle. So it doesn't support their position, and their census data is 10 years old. There's going to be significant foot traffic in the alley, which I think promotes a safety concern. Their exit and entry to the garage parking spaces will only be in the alley. They will have to exit their garage, walk down to the east end of the building, and then exit and then enter the building, which is going to increase the foot traffic. As they discuss the on-street parking, and the study states that there's plenty of on-street parking, but it doesn't consider that the parking on Central Street, except for a 1-block stretch that they consider, is zoned 2-hour parking. So retail employees and residents are not going to be able to utilize that parking because they're going to need to park for longer than 2 hours. And that eliminates 51 of the parking spots that they propose. Also, if retail employees arrive between 7 and 9, this area, because it's right by the Central Street Metro Station, is heavily zoned from 7 to 9. And so they wouldn't be able to park in 421 of the spots they claim would be available. As for off-street parking, they point to Ryan Field, the St. Athanasius parking lot, and the commercial lots, but those would only provide parking after hours. And so the tables that are shown in tables A5 and A6 that show availability during the day are incorrect. And the hospital is 3/4 of a mile away, so that doesn't seem as feasible for retail to park 3/4 of a mile away. The time that the study was conducted was sometime during the summer. It's not clear from the study report. But the parking was studied in July when the university wasn't in session, which they acknowledge. St. A's wasn't in session, so we didn't have people moving
Mrs.
up.
Levy, I'm sorry, but I do need you to wrap up.
All right. It was also prime vacation time, so people weren't parking as much. Metro riders ride their bikes during the summer. The study acknowledges that if we build this building, hopefully this will revitalize this area of Central Street, and I think that's what we all hope will happen. But if that's true, we're going to have even more people parking there, and I think we need to think now, long-term, to make sure that people want to move their businesses to that area of Central Street and not want to avoid it because of the parking congestion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Don Ziegler, Wayne Heimbach, Mike Vasilko, and Hank Sheff. And anyone who wants to take less than 3 minutes, feel free to do so.
I will do that. Madam Mayor, City Council members, and senior staff, I'm Don Ziegler, 1430 Elmwood. I'm employed by the American Medical Association as Director of Prevention and Health Promotion, and I'm on the faculty of Preventive Medicine at Rush University. Tonight, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Evanston Health Advisory Council, which is chaired by Natasha Deutsch. I've been asked to express the Council's dismay at the proposed cuts in the city budget, specifically Item 23, Community Health Initiatives. The proposed cuts allegedly have a potential savings of between $365,000 and $425,000. 3 areas would be affected, we understand. Vital records. The program is actually a revenue generator. It is appreciated by the public and is a significant convenience for citizens. The second affected program is the dental clinic. While the dental clinic has run a deficit in the past, through a grant from the state and improved reimbursement, the program is now, we understand, revenue neutral, and its income is growing, and the service is needed by more and more uninsured in our community. The third program is Women Out Walking. Women Out Walking is a walking program designed to encourage women in Evanston to lead healthier lifestyles and become more physically active. Individuals and teams of women track their steps and seek to improve their activity level on a weekly basis. In the beginning, the 12-week program was supported by grants and business contributions, which no longer exist. However, now, the cost to the city is minimal for a program that began with 500 women in the first year, and now in the last 2 years have averaged over 1,000 women who continue working out regularly. I've heard of numerous lives changed, women unable to walk 2 blocks when they started, but now tirelessly completing the 3.5 mile corporate challenge. People now off blood pressure and diabetes medications. They're walking together, helping them quit smoking. At the same time, these women develop a tremendous support network. This is truly health promoting and must continue. We don't believe that the proposed cuts are needed. They're not going to save money, and it would be hurt Evanston's public health. These 3 targeted programs are at least revenue neutral, improving their bottom line, and provide a tremendous service to our citizens. Moreover, the city has made a commitment in the health plan called the E-Plan 2011 to 2016, which was submitted to the Illinois Department of Public Health. Our health department and community partners developed the 5-year plan to focus on priority areas based on demonstrated health needs of our population and set objectives to advance the health of the entire community. The 3 priority issues are access to health care,
Don, I do need you to wrap up, please.
I am. And obesity. The Advisory Council unanimously recommends that the City Council do the right thing and continue the health initiative to improve to help the city achieve these goals. So these are the expressions of the Evanston Health Advisory Council. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
My name is Wayne Heimbach, 3613 Central, and I wanted to come to the meeting today to talk about the issues in front of the city with privatization and contracting out. One of the things that I think is that contracting out is a very complicated issue, that any short-term advantage, long-term can quite quickly disappear. Costs are there all over the place just to process RFPs, to manage the contract, and further increases that can come down the road. As contractors get squeezed, we're all getting squeezed, and as they get squeezed, the only place that they can go is to squeeze the city. And that has to be taken into consideration when you look at what's been going on. I think more generally that privatization has been one of the worst things that's happened in this country over the past 20 years. On a federal, on a state, on a municipal level, you've had people all over the place trying to find some kind of a problem and trying to find contracting out as a way to resolve that problem. I think that this council oversees a lot of very important issues. And I'm always impressed when I come to the meetings how much you work and talk through those issues. I'm on a couple of committees that have to do with city, with senior services. I'm on the Commission on Aging, and I'm on the Life Enrichment Fund of the Levy Center. And I've really been impressed with all the people working together, trying to find solutions to very, very difficult problems. And I think we're all trying to do those kinds of things as well. But I think that the kinds of solutions we're trying to find on those committees, try to find good services for the city, these are all the same kinds of things that should be under the management and the control of City Council. I think that's very important. More broadly, I think we all are concerned about the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots in the society. I think privatization has really worked to the disadvantage of our country. The economy is not the only thing that's making that divide happen in our society. It's also privatization, where people who have decent jobs, who've been able to raise their families, send their kids through college, all the things that we all want, are disappearing on all levels of government as things start to change. There are problems, and everybody understands that. And I'm sure that the discussions that the city's having with the unions involved, everybody understands that we can try to find some kind of solution. And I think privatization is not the way to go, but trying to find some kind of way to work together, that's the way that we should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Vasilko, 2728 Reese Avenue. 3 quick things. I hope for the budget and efficiency discussion list. And all of the parking lots related to things like grocery stores and Walgreens and things like that. Many of those signs for ADA handicap parking spaces are shown to be like $100. The state mandates those signs are supposed to read fines of $250 per violation. If those were patrolled, which the ones at Dominic's that I go to all the time are not patrolled, it seems to me that would be a source of revenue. If I can see 2 or 3 violations a week in one parking lot, there must be hundreds of violations in the course of a week throughout Evanston. Secondly, I've attended the last 2 budget meetings. I came to learn that some time ago the City Council directed staff to use all of the hotel tax revenue for funds and staff time spent at the Economic Development Committee. I do believe in much of what the Economic Development Committee does, but in this economy, shouldn't the council consider diverting part of that $1.5 million targeted for the EDC to the general funds to avoid some of the staff reductions that are being considered? According to the city manager, the council has the authority to do this. Lastly, more for your benefit than for mine, because I get to leave shortly, and you don't. I don't understand why, for efficiency purposes, the council can't consolidate the AP&W and the P&D committee meeting with the council meeting so that you could make a much more efficient use of your time. You're going to listen to about 30 or 45 minutes worth of repeated discussion that took place earlier today, which could have saved you possibly an hour getting home tonight. The reality is that the aldermen are the same people at all these meetings, and it seems to me you could be more productive if you can consolidate these meetings. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hank Schuff, Elliot Sation, Jared Davis, and Michael Baker.
Hi, I'm Elliot Sation, 715 Asbury Avenue. I'm speaking as a member of the Community Labor Alliance for Public Service. We've had an opportunity over the last few weeks to talk about why privatization of city services is not a good option, and I won't rehearse that. I want to be brief. Thinking about this from the longer perspective, as Wayne alluded to, it occurs to me as someone who's been involved with a number of sustainability groups that there is a much more important consideration against privatization. I don't think anybody who's studied city government and the politics of our society today can think that the challenges that will face Evanston in the decades to come are going to be easier than the ones we're facing now, particularly as we find more stresses on the environment from climate change, needs for energy that are going to be harder to provide for residents. In many ways, there'll be challenges to the city, and I think if we begin to outsource basic services that have been very much a part of the community and give those away, the city is going to be ill-equipped to deal with those long-term challenges, and that's, I think, a reason for not taking a time when maybe budgets seem to be all that crucial and saving some minor amount of money and weakening the role of the government and the ability to control its destiny. I think that's going to be very much affected by privatization. So I hope that the city manager will take the whole privatization of services out of the budget consideration and go forth with other alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Michael Baker, 815 Judson Avenue. I'm speaking tonight as co-chair of the Community Labor Alliance for Public Services, the organization which brought approximately almost 2,000 signatures to the City Council opposing the privatization of public services, which are available from the City Clerk if you haven't seen them. I won't repeat what other people have said, but I have two additional points that I would like to make about the privatization of public services. The first is related to the concept of economic value. There's a pervasive myth in this country that only the private sector creates value in the economy and that the public sector does not create value and is in fact parasitic on the economy. This is a myth perpetuated by those with a vested interest in undermining the public sector for ideological and private gain. The reality is that the public sector creates enormous value in the economy in numerous ways. The second point I would like to make is about democracy itself. The public sector is, in fact, the manifestation of our democratic aspirations as a community because we own these services collectively and control them collectively. As a result, the outsourcing of public services to the private sector undermines our very democracy itself. As a result, on behalf of the Community Labor Alliance for Public Services, I would like to ask the Council to remove from the outsourcing list all public services being considered. I yield the balance of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jared Davis here? All right. Padma Rao, B.K. Rao, and Bonnie Wilson, who does or doesn't want to speak. Okay.
Padma Rao, 2246 Sherman Avenue. What did this council vote for at Kendall? It condoned closed-door meetings, excluding the public from discussions about public issues. It approved an alley that dumps traffic onto the narrowest street, thus risking the lives of young children and other pedestrians. It sentenced over 24 mature trees to death for no reason. This council refuses to address any of our concerns, no matter how well supported in law, science, and logic. Instead, the mayor repeatedly violated our constitutional right to ask our public officials to address the public issues that they decided without any discussion. Does such conduct fulfill this council's fiduciary obligation to the taxpayers? If not, then why permit it? The Evanston Patch reported that Alderman Fisk was overheard assuring the developer's lawyer that the vote would be pushed through no matter what concerns taxpayers have. Did this council consider the impact of its vote on the taxpayers, on our community, on the environment, and on our history? If so, where's the proof in the record? If not, why not? This council approved bills lists in many council packets showing payments to the law firm Holland & Knight, the last one for the August 8th meeting. Minutes for the council meeting on May 10, 2010 state that Alderman Fisk's son works for this firm.
Point of order.
Alderman
Point of
Rainey.
order. Madam Mayor, I have great respect for Alderman Fisk and her family, and I am not going to sit here another evening and listen to this person diminish this family. So I'm going to ask you to cut her off.
This person is
I am
stating
going
what is
to
in
ask
the
you-
minutes,
I am
in
going
the
to ask
minutes
you.
of the city
Ms.
council
Rao, you do not
meeting.
have the
It is a
floor.
public record.
You may not
From this
continue
city.
to do this.
All right.
I may simply
City
cite
Attorney.
something that is in the city records. It is a public record published by this city as an official record of its
Ms.
proceedings.
Rao, I have asked the city attorney to rule on this. Please let him do so.
He's not in a position to make a decision about a First Amendment matter. I am
Certainly
simply
in a
talking
position
about
to
a
advise
public
the mayor.
matter.
The mayor's in charge of the meeting, so be quiet until you get a ruling.
You are not in charge of the meeting. I do not accept the ruling
right.
of the mayor's little minion who pretends to be a lawyer.
All right, that does it. No, we don't speak like that at city council.
Then you need to stop interrupting me when I simply cite something that is in the record.
You are
It is
not
from
simply
city
citing
council
something.
minutes
All right, Ms.
from
Rao,
May 10th, 2010.
I am going to have to ask you to leave if you cannot be quiet so that we can get a ruling from the city attorney. It's your choice. You may leave or you may let us get a ruling. City attorney.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mayor, you are in charge of determining questions of order and establishing rules for decorum, so it's within your discretion to set appropriate limits as you see fit relative to public comment and the debate currently before you.
Thank you. I would agree with Alderman Rainey that it is time for you to leave Alderman Fisk's family out of your discussions. You have come before us every single meeting and have said the same thing over and over and over again. It is time now to leave Alderman Fisk's family alone.
It is a question of conflict of interest
It
for
has
Alderman
been
Fisk.
asked and answered.
It has
The
never
city
been
attorney
answered.
did answer it.
It has never been answered.
The
Because
city
on the March
manager
14th,
answered it, and the
in the
city attorney answered
The
it.
city attorney did not answer this conflict of interest. He did not answer how
All
it
right,
is
you
not
want him
a
to
conflict of
answer it?
interest.
Go ahead. City attorney, would you like to answer that?
With respect to the conflict of interest, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Grant Farrar, Corporation Counsel. Ms. Rao is alleging a conflict of interest that exists. Under conflict of interest statutes in the Illinois Rules of Professional Conduct, if conflict of interest is determined to exist, and typically what happens is the client, which in this case would be the Evanston City Council and the City of Evanston staff, which had a previous relationship with Holland & Knight, would allege a conflict of interest exists. I think perhaps at this point in the proceedings, Madam Mayor, members of council, and Ms. Rao, I think it might be appropriate if this matter were referred to the City of Evanston Board of Ethics so that they may issue the appropriate opinion that would be responsive to Ms. Rao, and perhaps with respect to it being vetted by that independent body, we may have a resolution of the issue and see where we go from there.
Thank you. I agree. We need a resolution of the issue so that it does not get brought up at every single meeting. Ms. Rao, we are referring it to the Ethics Committee of the Evanston City Council.
The Ethics Committee should have decided this back in March.
The Ethics
March 14th,
Committee can decide it
March
now.
14th of 2011 when this was brought to this council's attention.
All right.
Instead of attacking me for asking the question, bear in mind the U.S. Supreme Court made a decision in the Kerrigan case over the summer that bears directly on this matter, and I have cited it to this council more than once. It could have been looked into before. Continuing. The March 14th packet contains both more payments to Holland and Knight and the developer's lawyer's letter stating that the same firm had been hired to represent against the taxpayers. The mayor and her lawyer attacked me for citing the city's records.
We have referred that to Holland and Knight. If you cannot stop discussing Holland, we have referred the Holland and Knight issue to the Ethics Committee.
How does this council's not discussing the matter serve the taxpayers' interest?
We have discussed it, and we are done discussing it.
The council did not discuss how the double representation is possibly serving the taxpayers' interests. Going on, Alderman Fisk recently stated that she had more closed-door dealings with the developer, excluding the public, resulting in a new scheme to transplant mature trees. Why wasn't this plan presented and analyzed
You are
publicly?
not allowed to attack people at a city council
I am not
meeting.
attacking a person. I am attacking the official conduct of a governmental official, not a person. I am not alleging that someone has bad hair or a bad outfit.
You are not giving any facts about her having closed-door dealings with developers.
This was stated at the last call of the wards 2 weeks ago. The statement was that there were dealings that were not public. They were not before any body of this council. They were not announced. There was no notice to the public. Therefore, closed door. Why wasn't this plan presented and analyzed publicly? Was an arborist specialized in transplanting mature trees consulted? If not, why not? Incidentally, an article in the Financial Times entitled A Movable Forest details the significant logistical challenges involved in transplanting mature trees, as well as the very serious risks that mature trees may not survive such an ordeal, even with expert care.
Thank you very much.
Why doesn't
Your time
this council,
is up.
because you interrupted me, why doesn't this council just require compliance with Section 617.6 of the City Code, which mandates that existing trees shall be preserved in place? Wouldn't that be easier and pose less risk to the oldest living links to our history? Shifting gears, the last township meeting raised questions about the elector's role. The township code states that the electors shall choose one of their number as moderator in both annual and special township meetings. Further, the Open Meetings Act requires that any person shall be allowed to address a public body. This council adjourned, and then the township convened as a separate public body that I submit is subject to the Act's mandated public address provision. Will there be compliance with the law today? Apparently not. Why not? See you all next time.
B.K. Rao, 2246 Sherman Avenue. I have been coming here to talk about Kendall property resubdivision for some time. The way the council is treating this issue is not only insulting, but it is also bringing certain questions about the way they conduct their duties. Why does the council feel that it was all right for them to pass the Kendall resolution without any public discussion? The bed and breakfast issue was discussed. The dangerous dog issue is being discussed. The township budget issue is being discussed. It is the right thing to discuss issues in public because they are public issues and they affect the public. Then, why can't the same principle be applied to the Kendall property resubdivision issue? It was introduced and passed with no public discussion. Why? There are environmental and traffic concerns that greatly affect us. These concerns were brought to the council's attention several times before, during, and after the resolution. Our concerns were ignored. I was interrupted several times by the mayor. My daughter is being treated unprofessionally by the mayor's so-called lawyer. Is this council telling its people that we should not have a right to express our thoughts about the council's actions? Which direction is this council moving in? In a recent council meeting, the first ward alderman suggested that she and the developer decided to transplant the centuries-old tall trees. I could have believed her. Only thing is, I did not forget my high school botany. In case she did, she should have consulted a real arborist about her grand plans. For her information, there is an article in this weekend's Financial Times under the title, A Movable Forest. It would be illuminating for her to read it. Her grand plans might look grandiose and unachievable. And one more thing, let us not forget that this city is still paying large sums of money to Holland and Knight, which is also hired by the developer to sue the city. Like I said last time, is it because it is not your money, but it is taxpayers' money? I shall return.
Ms. Wilson? City Manager, I do have one question for you. Are we paying any money to Holland and Knight?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as the council is aware that for many years Holland and Knight represented the city through the services of former Corporation Counsel Jack Siegel. Mr. Siegel separated from his work with the city several years ago. What the city has done for a year was contract with Holland and Knight's legislative team in Washington, D.C., not for legal services, but for legislative representation. That lasted 1 year and ended February 28th of this year. So there had been payments that trailed after February 28th to conclude that arrangement. Holland and Knight did not represent the city legally. However, we did use lobbyists for 12 months, ending on February 28th, 2011.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tisdall and City Council members. I'm Bonnie Wilson, Evanston Township Assessor. I'd like to announce that the Cook County Board of Review opened for appeals on Friday, September the 24th. The Cook County Commissioner, Larry Sefferden, and our new Board of Review Commissioner, Mike Narjarji, and myself are sponsoring a free property tax seminar for residential property owners of Evanston Township. It will be on Tuesday, October the 13th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Fleetwood Jourdain at 1655 Foster. Property owners should bring their property index numbers with them to the seminar. A short presentation will open the meeting to provide general information on the appeal process. Appeal forms and assistance will be available. Property owners will have until Monday, October 24th, to file an appeal with the Cook County Board of Review. The filing deadline for Evanston for the Board of Review is Monday, October the 24th. Residents may call Commissioner Sefferden's office at 847-864-1209, or they can call the Evanston Township office, 847-332-2465, with questions or to schedule an appointment for assistance. The information is also available on www.sefferden.org, and you can now, for the first time, apply online at the Cook County Board of Review's website. That's cookcountyboardofreview.com. However, if you want to use comparables, I suggest that you come to the township office, and we will be happy to help you with your comparables of your property. So please call. Again, our phone number is 847-332-2465, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Len Lampkin.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I live at 835 Ridge Avenue in a condo. I'd like to just quickly talk about two things that are in the proposed privatization. One is our crossing guards. These are our most vulnerable citizens. These are either citizens on Social Security or folks like myself who are unemployed, who are working for basically minimum wage. What we choose to do in this budget that's proposed or in the plan is pay Andy Fran twice what we pay the crossing guards, which takes money out of the city of Evanston, so these folks will no longer be spending it on city services because most of these folks shop in Evanston and it'll go elsewhere, while paying Andy Fran double. And the other proposed savings comes from, allegedly, the parking manager will now write tickets. Well, when can't the parking manager write tickets now? While they're out supervising or allegedly supervising the crossing guard? That's a shenanigan in the budget. That $100,000 that will be additional revenue doesn't really exist because that parking manager doesn't write revenue and has never written tickets for the city. The second piece has to do with the health department. And a question. In the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare plan, there's a prevention fund. Multi-billions of dollars are going to community health centers. Did we, the city of Evanston, ask for any of those dollars? If not, why not? Did we get any? Why didn't we get any when multiple other community health centers throughout this country received dollars to expand their services, to increase the level of services, and to keep their services? If we didn't get them and applied for them, we're not doing something right, and we need to think about how we get a better use of our lobbying dollars. Why don't we use the congressional staff and the senator's staff who helped other community centers write for that money, get the money that we need? And lastly, in the health department, we used to do flu shots for senior citizens and poor people for $5 a flu shot. We haven't done anything like that. We're getting away from services, and we need to go back to improving our quality of services. That's what made Evanston a great city, and will make it a great city again. And on the revenue, I have just some ideas. Some of my fellow residents won't like them, but hey, why don't we add Sunday meters to downtown? Why don't we collect meter money on Sundays? Gee, most of that is tourists, not Evanston residents. Why don't we raise the tax on alcohol and tobacco? Again, a user fee that will reduce our health care costs in the long run. And then why don't we increase the fines on stores that continue to sell over and over again these alcohol and tobacco products to our children? Increase the fines. Again, increased revenue. They're going to keep selling them because you guys keep yanking their licenses for suspending them, and they keep showing up here for hearings. Just as some ideas, as well as other store violations. And even though I am unemployed, I would rather pay a few more dollars in my property taxes, as I am a condo owner, because that's tax deductible on my federal return, than user fees, such as the Park District or the beach, which are not tax deductible. And besides this, I'd rather keep all of my public services public because it improves the quality of life. As we saw with Groot, privatization comes with higher costs. I'm almost finished here. One last paragraph, and equals reduced services. If you don't believe me, ask the residents of New Orleans who are dying because they have to use private ambulances right now, or you can ask the rats who live in my alley in my backyard since we got Groot. That's the quality of life? I say no. I say let's keep our services public. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments. Alderman Rainey?
Well, I love everything he said, except there was a problem with the community health issue, and I think the city manager should explain, just briefly, the efforts that we made. Because sometimes when people say things at the podium, it becomes a fact, and I think we should correct that.
Madam Mayor, Alderman Rainey, as the council is aware, and hopefully many people in the community are aware, the city did indeed apply with Erie Family Healthcare of Chicago for a federally qualified health center. We were one of...
That's not the Affordable Care money.
Sir,
That's not the Affordable Care money.
Sir.
That's a federal grant.
Sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So we did apply for this. That was the funding that we were eligible for. Unfortunately, we did not receive it. Mayor Tisdall met personally with Senator Richard Durbin in his Capitol office in Washington, personally to lobby on behalf of the city for these efforts. We continue to do what we can, absent lobbyists, to gain funds for the city of Evanston.
Thank you.
Alderman Nguyen was asking who did get it in the state of Illinois. There were 2 rural communities, one in western Illinois, one in southern Illinois. And those were the only 2 communities in the state of Illinois that received funding.
Well, can I just correct
That's enough. Thank you.
Buzz, he's talking about a grant, and I'm talking about federal money from the Affordable Care Act, 2 different sources of federal money.
A federally qualified health center is what we applied for.
No,
It's
and I
what
asked
we
the
were
question-
eligible
I
for.
didn't ask that question.
All
I asked
right,
the question,
sir.
why not the Affordable Care money?
Sir,
All right, that's my question.
talk to Yvonne Thomas if you think that there is other money that we could apply for.
I'll talk to my alderman.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to recess for the township meeting?
I move to adjourn. Second.
Recess. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? City Clerk?
Being the Township Clerk of Evanston, the Township of Evanston, special township meeting, a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2012 annual budget and township alternative organizational structure. Notice is hereby given to the legal voters and residents of the town of Evanston in the county of Cook and the state of Illinois that a special township meeting of said town will take place on Monday, 26th of September 2011 during the hours of the council meeting on the second floor, 2100 Ridge Avenue, Evanston, Illinois, 6201. This meeting was called for at the last meeting on the 19th, and we'll be discussing the township structure and the budget. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion from the floor or for a moderator for this meeting. The floor is now open for nominations for moderators. It could be any elected official, it could be any registered voter. Any nominations from the floor?
Nominate Mayor Tisdall.
Trustee Tisdale.
Trustee Tisdall.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded to nominate Trustee Tisdall. Are there any other nominations from the floor? There's no other nomination from the floor. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of Trustee Tisdall as being the moderator for the meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign is carried. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge and impartially discharge your duties of moderator of this town meeting, so help you?
I do.
Sign, please.
All right, the issues are to pass the budget. And
So, Madam Moderator, I believe it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to approve ordinance T2-0-11, approving the budget and appropriation ordinance for town purposes for the second half of the fiscal year ending March 31, 2012.
I would so move.
is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Rainey.
Moderator Tisdall, I believe it's only a half budget, is it not?
It is a half budget. Thank you, Trustee Rainey. Trustee Grover.
Does the ordinance that we have in the packet reflect that it's a 6-month budget?
Yes,
I believe
Trustee
it
Grover.
does.
Thank you. At the last meeting, we discussed a number of cost-saving suggestions that were assembled by Mrs. Joellen Earl, and I wondered if our township supervisor and the township officials would recommend that we adopt any of those cost-saving measures for the remainder of the township's budget year as a way of finding more efficient ways to run the township office in collaboration with the city services.
Included in your packet also was a look at what expenses had been spent to date in regards to some of those proposed cost savings. Then there are some contracts. One of the things we do have to do in terms of sitting down with the city to take there are some questions I have that have not been totally addressed, but things such as the storage, we know we possibly can look at that. We're also looking into the IT, but there are some questions whether or not the phone system we have is compatible. So for me to sit up here and say that, yes, we can realize all of these cost savings, I cannot make that blanket statement.
I think my question was different, and that is, are there specific ones that we should definitely pursue and look at, get more information, and fold those potential savings into the budget for the rest of the year?
Well, the only ones that I can think, and when we were looking at it, I do know we were talking about mainly, I know it was IT, storage. I think those were the main ones because the accounting is through the end of the fiscal year. There's a contract. The audit has been done. The audit probably will not cost as much as in the budget. I cannot think of some of the other things that they put in for cost savings. But those I know we could take a look at. But we're already 6 months into the fiscal year, so a lot of those cost savings will not occur because of the timing.
What's your estimate as to what the amount of the cost savings could be?
I have not calculated that as to what the cost savings could be, other than the savings, other than the amounts that you have in your packet that shows what's been expended to date and what's left.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, looking at that one page, a specific amount that would be a projected cost savings as recommended by Ms. Earle. So is it the data processing is the IT? So the budgeted amount is $10,000?
No, the data processing...
It's different than IT.
Right, it's different than IT. The IT has to do with the maintenance of the servers and other things that go down. The data processing has to do, I think, with payroll. That was the city actually maybe taking over and doing the payroll so that we don't have to pay a contractor to continue the payroll. That was on the data process.
Payroll processing.
Payroll
budgeted
processing.
Amount of $2,500, expended to date $772. So, I'm just looking at getting at some actual savings. I firmly believe that we should, as a general matter, be as efficient as possible in how we structure and manage government, and that each level of government should be as efficient as possible. And I'm always glad that our township operates within its budget and doesn't run a deficit, but it's not to say that there are ways in which the township could save money, and there were some pretty concrete ways that were presented by Ms. Earle, and I'm very interested in pursuing some of those things if they are a possibility, and attaching specific numbers to them so that we can incorporate them into a budget tonight. I think that makes sense. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I guess I was hoping for a more specific recommendation on what we could do tonight to realize some of those cost savings at our township offices. Storage, again, budgeted $2,200, spent already. It's $189 per month, so that times 6 is $1,200.
But in any event, in any of them, you're going to have to at least give a 30-day leeway in terms of looking at certain things. But one of the things that I do want to point out is that there's some things that we can take a look at, but like I said, we're 6 months in. We have certain obligations that have been put forth. So one of the things that we've always done and will continue to do, if there are ways that we can save money, we will. But this was initial thing that was done less than 2 weeks ago with city staff, so it does take some time to sit down and see how this is going to work what's going to be the mechanism for making it happen. Even when we look at a transfer of moving out of the storage, we have to plan, we have to move it. How are we going to get it out of there? What's going to be the cost? And where is this going to go at the city? So it's not like it's going to take place in the next 7 days.
Trustee Holmes has a question.
Well, I was just going to ask, and just following up on Alderman Grover, in terms of, I went back and looked, I have Miss Earl's memo in front of me, and a lot of the savings are things that she recommended that could be transferred to the city. And if I heard the township supervisor correctly, she said that she needed to still sit with the city and talk about some of these, just like storage. There hadn't been a designated place yet to move. So I guess a lot of these things, for me anyway, are things that we need to really ask the township supervisor to make really big efforts to make sure these things are incorporated into the next year's budget rather than what we can do now for the next 6 months. If there's something that can be done, we certainly would want to work on that. But a lot of this has to be worked out in terms of looking at the auditing is already done, it's already paid for, but we can talk about looking at something different for the next budget. Same with accounting, the bank fees is nothing. I mean, it's very small. But just looking at the big ones, the contractual services, the web development, that kind of thing to be transferred to the city, some of the contract services, the IT support, that's a fairly large one. Some of the contracted contract services, data processing and that kind of thing. So, if we could ask them to work on that as a goal, I think that would be good, and anything that can be accomplished within the next several months, we could always then amend this budget, I believe, could we not? If you could find some savings, if things could work out, if the storage works out, you can go ahead and do that. Is that correct?
The budget can always be amended, and it also, just because something is budgeted doesn't necessarily mean you go out and you spend all of it. And whatever that balance was, it goes into the fund reserve.
Trustee Rainey?
The supervisor just made my point. There's plenty of stuff budgeted for here that we levy for that is never spent, which is exactly why there's always a balance in the Evanston Township Budget Fund. The only way, as trustees, that we can affect the spending at the township is to reduce the amount of the town fund. The supervisor has the authority to spend money in any way she sees fit, responsibly spend it in any way she sees fit. If she wants to continue storage, if she has the money in the budget, she can continue to spend money on storage. The only way you have any control over the township budget is to reduce the town fund allocation. But having said that, I'm very curious. What do you have in storage?
We are required by law to store all of our records. There is a record and disposal process have to go through, so all of the records have to be stored. The accounting records, client files, all of those are what kept in storage.
So they're paper?
Mm-hmm. They're paper.
And there's no provision for making them electronic?
Absolutely not, according to our, and we cannot dispose of them until we go through a process, a written process, where someone has to come out, check it, and then sign off on the right to dispose of it.
How many years of storage do you have?
We have at a minimum 7 years, because we're required.
But what do we actually have?
Oh, we do dispose on a regular basis.
Okay,
so we should,
we do. Okay.
Right, we do dispose on a regular basis.
And to continue to harp on storage probably isn't where we're going to make a big dent here, because it's only $2,000, but I was very curious if you had old furniture or records or what.
No, we do, we dispose of furniture that's not, no, we don't have furniture in storage locker, no. They're records.
I want to be clear that anyone in this room who wants to ask a question can do so. So if anyone does, please raise your hand. Trustee Grover.
Thank you, Trustee Tisdall. Remind me then how we left it when we approved the 6-month budget for the first half of the fiscal year. As I recall, we approved a budget that was based upon last year's budget, not upon the proposed budget, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor Vance, the proposed budget was actually less than last year's budget for the township. Am I right?
I actually have not seen or signed off on anything. I don't know exactly what you have done for the person. It's been totally confusing.
You're not the only one.
Right, totally confusing. So I do not know exactly what you have done.
I think we continued the last fiscal year budget for the first 6 months of this budget year instead of approving the proposed budget for 6 months. I think it was extending the township budget for another 6 months from last year.
I think that whoever's the keeper of the records would have to go back in the minutes and find that.
Well, what we're voting on whenever we get to it is proposed budget and appropriation ordinance for town purposes for the second half of fiscal year 2011-2012, ending March 31st, 2012. If that helps.
Yes.
All right, seeing no further lights, Township Clerk, would you call the roll?
This is for accepting 2T011, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Introduced this I'm sorry, Clerk Green. We introduced this at our last meeting. Did anybody move to adopt for this meeting? No. Okay, so somebody should do that.
Alderman Rainey, you would be an excellent person.
I'd prefer not to, thank you.
I will do it. I will move to adopt the second half of the township budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the second half of the township budget. Are we ready?
What did you say? What did you say? Oh, she's
Township Clerk?
she's got a huge budget.
Are we ready to call the roll, everyone? All right.
There's a problem in Houston.
We were discussing the deputy assessor, and Alderman Grover was asking me what happened in this. I remember correctly that I was outvoted. I did not vote on raise, and everyone else did, if I remember correctly. I think that's the way it worked. So you all did approve that.
I remember, Alderman Holmes. Was
I
that
don't
Trustee
remember
Holmes?
if it was at committee or at council, but I do remember that you all did outvote me. I remember I'm the only one that voted no, so, and I'm standing by it still, but.
This budget discussion may be longer than our city budget discussion
Absolutely.
altogether.
I don't think so. All right, are we ready to call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover.
No.
Alderman Rainey.
No.
It's 6 to 2. It goes through.
6 ayes, 2 nays. The budget passes. City Manager, what else do you need from us on the township?
Trustees, you asked at your last meeting for some additional information on potentially moving forward with a dissolution or a change in form of the Township of Evanston. Township Attorney Farrar prepared a memorandum that was distributed late this afternoon electronically. There is a copy at your seat this evening, subject and title response to questions raised at September 19 meeting regarding township dissolution. Given the lateness that this was provided, perhaps you'd like to have Mr. Farrar walk the Township Board through the memorandum.
Next. Could we do this next time?
Okay. what we would
I
like
read
to
it.
do, in talking with Mr. Farrar earlier today about potential next steps, unless the Township Board would direct otherwise, we have heard from you that you're interested in continuing to go down the road of investigating dissolution of the township. And in reading Mr. Farrar's memorandum, you'll find that there remains a number of issues that would need to be resolved in various parts of state law. What we would like to do, if this is the direction of the Township Board, is to continue working on this. We think that a portion of the solution here will likely be legislation before the Illinois General Assembly. There's also a memorandum, a draft letter dated September 22nd to the Honorable Jeffrey Schoenberg requesting that he reach out to the Illinois Attorney General for an opinion on some issues. I believe it would be helpful to us if the Township Board is still feeling that this is something to continue forward with, that you would, by motion, direct the mayor to send that letter to Senator Schoenberg requesting additional information from the Illinois Attorney General. We would continue working on this issue and request that the Township Board meet again a month from now, either as part of a regular meeting on the 24th of October or as a special meeting on the 31st of October. My experience is that Halloween is often a difficult evening to have council meetings, so you may wish to just do this on the 24th, but it is a fifth Monday, so that would be available to you. So we would ask for your direction on the draft letter to Senator Schoenberg, and then if it's all right, we would continue working on the subject and come back to you at the end of October.
Trustee Fisk?
Just wanted to ask the city manager, so should we take any reference to dissolution of the township off the Human Services agenda and deal with it as trustees all sitting as a whole?
My recommendation to the Township Board is this is a significant issue, and I don't know that we will have new information a week from now other than the memorandum Mr. Farrar has prepared. I think he has provided a lot of good information, but I think what it really says is that we are likely going to need some legislative assistance from the Illinois General Assembly to make this clear. And that will not happen until they come back in veto session, which is still another month away.
Okay, fine.
Trustee Rainey?
Madam Mayor, I have not read your letter or Mr. Farrar's memo. However, I have read the bullet points on the back page of your memo. I'm not sure I understand your letter. We're talking about if the township were dissolved, who would be the township supervisor? If the township were dissolved, who would be the township assessor? Why would we want a township supervisor or assessor if we dissolve the township?
Since I didn't write my letter, I can't answer.
I mean, I just think we need to rethink this letter. It sort of says we want to go to all the trouble of dissolving the township, but we don't want to eliminate any of the responsibilities or the finances. I mean, I think the issue really is if we dissolve the township, can we still provide general assistance stipend to clients who are deserving? That would be the only service that I would be interested in providing were we to dissolve the township. So I don't see, I mean, it would seem a nightmare to develop a referendum statement based on some of the things that you're asking. Either we dissolve the township or we don't.
And Alderman Rainey, members of the board, one of the challenges we face is that there are statements in other parts of Illinois law that require these positions, and the elimination of the township without additional guidance could provide more difficulties for us down the road. And if it would make sense for us to draft language, if the Attorney General would to opine that we would make a statement that in Evanston, Illinois, the city of Evanston, there is no need for those services, and those services are the responsibility of another party or as appointed by the mayor or the city manager or by the city council. If that would be useful to have in that referendum, that one line could save us months or years of issues in dealing with this. And again, we have no good template to go by, And our feeling was that the Illinois Attorney General, should she choose to opine, could only be helpful to us in these matters. That's where we're coming from. We could simply ask about the general assistance, because I think that is, of these issues, the most complex as to how this would be done. We really have no tool to help us with that answer, and I think we'll need specific legislation either through the bill that Senator Cullerton has introduced or separate legislation just for Evanston. We can do this absent an Attorney General's opinion. Our advice to the Council is that any additional opinion or advice from the Attorney General would only help matters.
All right, well, at 11:15 on Monday night, not having read this letter, as an individual member of the council, I would like some time to read it and make a decision in the light of day as opposed to in the middle of the night. So I just don't feel comfortable that we're asking for information that I feel comfortable with. I could be the only person.
Trustee Grover?
Thank you, Trustee Tisdale. I think we can all agree that we need general assistance, last-ditch public aid in Evanston, and that it can help to get clarification from our state constitutional officer. The exact wording of a letter requesting that advice we can work on, but perhaps we can still all agree that request to, what's her name? Lisa Madigan, it's getting late, can only help and guide us in this. And perhaps if the letter could also perhaps mimic some of the language that's coming out of Springfield about consolidation of governments as well, not just dissolution or termination or of the township, but rather governmental consolidation, which I think is kind of where Cullerton was heading with the more recent initiative.
Trustee Wynn?
I don't want to belabor this. I think Alderman Grover has stated, Trustee Grover has stated what I would say, but I do think we should we should keep moving this forward, and I think that we should request clarification and make every effort to make this process as clean and straightforward as possible.
All right, I think we're all in agreement that it is almost 11 at night, and perhaps we should, yes.
All right, I'll move that we keep moving this forward, whatever this is.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And Madam,
I have no idea what you said.
Peter, your mic.
Sorry, no, I'm going on record as a nay. This is getting a little bit confusing and frustrating. It's too late at night to really get into everything that I'm feeling, but I just want to go on record as a nay. I do agree with Alderman Rainey regarding the letter, and I'm just, again, there's a high level of frustration right now, and I'm not clear on what we're moving forward to do. Just given all the information that we've seen, it's just completely unclear. So if there's a way to either pass this or table this issue to a later, go ahead, to a later date, then I'll just nay and I'll be quiet. Okay. It's fine.
All right. Trustee Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, maybe it would be helpful to clarify what it is actually that we're moving forward. My impression is what's moving forward is that you're asking the Illinois Attorney General for an opinion on how, if we should decide this is something that we want to do, how we would do it. But no decision is being made at this point of whether it's something we want to do or not. That's a discussion that we'll be having later. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
and Madam Chair, members of the board, then the last question would be, when would you like to come back? Would you like to come back on the 24th as part of a regular council meeting evening, or would you like to have a special meeting on a non-council meeting night?
Come back with what? I mean, we're going to go forward with the request.
But a next township meeting.
Yeah.
When would you like it, Trustee Rainey? The 24th.
Very good. So we will schedule it and properly notice it for Monday, October the 24th.
Trustee Fisk.
Do we have any idea how long it will take to get an opinion from the Attorney General?
No.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to reconvene as the city council? All right, wait. I'm sorry. Our parliamentarian is telling me I can't do that.
Right now, you still have a motion on the floor to move the ordinance 2T011 forward, and it was second, and
There was a vote.
We voted that.
2 noes.
That was the budget one.
that was the budget one. Okay. Okay.
I move we adjourn as township trustees.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, we are reconvened as the city council. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda?
Do we have a
Oh, wait,
special
wait,
order
wait,
of business?
Sorry, we have special business.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I apologize for it being now 5 to 11, but we do have for you a brief report on where we are with the budget process. As you know, we have concluded 2 budget workshops. We have concluded a community survey process. We have Lynn Monti here, who has worked as a consultant for the city to help us through this. She has a short presentation she would like to make with the results of this. We will take these results now and incorporate them into the final work being done on the proposed budget, which you will have no later than Friday, October 7th, in anticipation of your first budget workshop on Saturday, October 15th. And unless there's any initial questions, yes, the presentation is at your places and will be on the screen. Lynn, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Lynn Monti of Lynn Monti Associates, and it's been my privilege to be engaged by the City of Evanston to assist in the citizen engagement experience called Engage Evanston. And tonight we have the citizen budget input results for you, and I will be making a presentation of this via slide presentation for you. And I think you also have the handouts at your place. So Engage Evanston has been a community outreach initiative that's really designed to try to create a partnership between the community and the city to engage in dialogue, to help shape the budget priorities. This experience has generated many service change ideas that have been the subject of surveys, workshops, online and paper surveys, and many other conversations, including staff analysis. Obviously, the point of all of this was to assist in closing the projected budget deficit of $2.1 million for the year 2012 and $3.9 million for fiscal year 2013, and add to that the potential of $2 million to be allocated toward capital projects would raise those deficits to $4.1 million and $3.9 million respectively. I'd just like to point out that few cities go to the lengths that the City of Evanston has to engage the community, and I think of real importance, and something that I note, and I find it quite a privilege to work with the community members and be their voice, is that many commented through many narrative comments, thanks and appreciation for being asked, for listening as well as does occur in this process. And obviously, all of the concerns and experience of individual community members are being brought to this forum because we not only are offering, an opportunity to make a statement about the 40 service change ideas, but open-ended questions and comments so that individuals can share their personal experience. So the method of design for this process was several-fold. It has first been, in an internal way, an identification of the city services that are delivered by the City of Evanston, and some 103 services were identified, and the creation of a value matrix utilizing the priority-based budgeting process that you've heard a great deal about already. I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but if there are questions, I would be happy to answer them. We've used a variety of vehicles, and as I mentioned already, the online survey and comments, paper survey and comment, and the paper survey distributed through the roundtable, and just extensive effort made to both distribute and collect these so that individual residents can have a chance to speak to them. And live workshops. There were 2 of them, the most in the past week, actually, one on the 17th on Thursday evening and one just this past Saturday morning. These are designed for ease of participation. They are not designed for statistical accuracy. This is more of a qualitative experience where members of the community are invited. There is obviously no selection of representative sampling of the community. So 2 phases, and an external and an internal process in each one. For phase 1, the external process began May 1st through 7th, where the community members generated online some 175 different budget ideas for cost containment and revenue enhancement using the Evanston website. There was broad encouragement for people to go to the website and offer these. The residents who have participated in the process in many ways have admitted to understanding the stresses and strains the city is going through, and they themselves experiencing the similar thing in their own lives. And so I think that it is, even at this late hour, and even after hearing a lot of commentary from citizens about their frustrations and difficulties with processes and policies, there is an appreciation for what you are all going through. Then I'd like to point out the internal process that went along with this, preparation of the value matrix, which again I will not go into in depth, the analysis of the 175 suggestions, and preparation then of 40, what were found to be 40 feasible service change ideas, which I'm abbreviating SCI there, but we'll call them service change ideas for use in the phase 2 process I'll be covering in a minute. Further analysis of those 40 for plausibility, application of best practices, and estimates of cost savings or revenue enhancement. And that wasn't possible on all 40, but you have seen documentation as a book of some 467 pages of background information demonstrated the research and analysis that went behind this and the estimates where they were possible. And then there was a survey of nearby and comparable communities, especially on the privatization issue. So phase 2 began in the last month, August 22nd to September 22nd. And I'm going to go through each of the forms and just describe a little bit about them. So for the online portion of phase 2, there was the budget survey posted there with the 40 service change ideas, and we received 884 responses to that survey. Individuals were to rank each idea from strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree. So there were 5 categories, and they could also select one idea not to pursue as a recommendation. We received 74 comments online, and of those 74, some of those included phone contacts that we received and email responses as well. And then finally online, individuals were offered the opportunity to give an opinion about the priority-based budgeting process that had been used. In print media, postcards were circulated announcing the process. There was a paper survey, as I explained already, 183 Paper surveys were received via mail or drop off at a variety of locations in the community. In this case, because of the limitations of a paper survey, respondents were asked to select their three most favored ideas and three least favored ideas. So unlike with the online process where they could comment on every single one, on the paper survey they were only able to make limited selections. We received 83 written comments through the paper survey. And this is the postcard. Sorry, it's a poor image. It was a really nice postcard and very inexpensively printed, I might add, that announced the Engage Evanston budget process. And then this was the cover of the paper budget survey, which was a 4-page survey. And as I explained, there were so many ideas in there and so much to say that the output or the individual responses had to be quite limited. Then we had the citizen input workshops last Thursday and Saturday, where 45 individuals attended in total the 2 workshops. Unlike the other processes, these are meant for citizens to confer with each other, so they're sitting in round tables having a conversation. And so the output in that case is by table rather than by individual. And so, again, with only 8 total tables, the data is not that easy to compare, but I'm going to show you the results in all these different forms so that you can see that we utilized a variety of means to elicit response. And I might add that this happens to be a favored response of mine because people are always more wise when they have a chance to confer with others and not only offer a singular perspective that may not be as well informed. In that case, the tables recommended top 10 from each table. So they're top 10 recommendations, and they selected one idea not to pursue. Okay, and for the recommendations, first off, this was a little short survey about the priority-based budgeting process, and you can see that we have some interesting results here about using the value matrix tool. 53% agreed that it was a good idea, and then mixed results after that. 34 disagreed. Should the value matrix continue to be used? Most people said yes, they thought it was of value. I think that a lot of the issue comes with agreement on the rankings, and there we have a lot of disagreement about the way city services were ranked. And so this would be an opportunity in the coming years when, or if you choose to use this tool again, to refine it, improve it, and perhaps have a tool that has more ownership and is more widely supported.
Lynn, if I could just interrupt you.
Please.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, there are several slides where we have broken up the responses by the online survey, the paper survey, and the workshops. I'd like to ask Lynn to just jump over them. That information is there for your information. And just to focus on the 2 slides that have the recommendations overall, which are on slide,
16.
Slide 16. And then also the least favored overall. In the interest of time, and certainly, Madam Mayor, members of the council, if you have other questions, we can answer them. But perhaps just to go through those composite slides, Lynn, and any thoughts that you have about what that tells you based on the bringing together of the 3 input forms.
Okay, I'm happy to do that, and thank you for the suggestion, actually. There is a lot of data in here, and it will be useful for you to review at your leisure. This is the compilation, and again, each of these processes had its own set of questions and ways of delivering its responses. So they are not exactly equivalent to one another. You'll notice in the far right column, I note that the workshops, all of the top 10 were included in that workshop's top 15 in terms of ranking. So just run through these very quickly. Properties exempted from property tax, increased collections, water sales to other communities, shared use, enforcement of codes and ordinances, civic center space rental, and so on. I won't read them all. Their online rankings are in the columns. Online ranking is the first column, paper ranking the second, and again in the third column, all of these were the workshops, were in the workshop's top 15. What is the data saying, I think is what City Manager Bobkowitz wants me to discuss. And I think that the simple answer is do the obvious and claim the revenue that's on the table through increased collections, enforcement, accuracy regarding exempted properties, collaborations, human resource efficiencies, renting space. I mean, all of those top matters were perhaps not the most difficult decisions to be made. Utilize what you can when what is obvious to claim the revenues on the table. Online respondents were overall more willing to consider privatization than was otherwise the case. There were mixed feelings on that subject, both a desire for the efficiencies that might be gained and also an expression of appreciation for the service provided by city personnel, and a distaste for people losing their jobs. And so, you know, these are the kinds of comments that that kind of speak through the data, but don't necessarily jump out at you. So at this point, I would jump then to the least favored ideas, the items that are suggested not to be pursued, and that's on page 21 of your handout if you are following in that way. Among those least favored ideas, again,
Slide 21.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. There. Top one there is community health initiatives, followed by alcohol sales at city facilities, recreation programs and youth services programs, crossing guard, cultural arts center, affordable housing, ecology, then some more unusual city alley maintenance, not following the trend so much in information technology at the end. It seems that there is no appetite here for eliminating community health initiatives and social service programming, no appetite for expanding serving alcohol and serving alcohol at city facilities. And the programs and services related to children seem to be very prized, and people to be rather protective of those. So in closing then, these 40 service change ideas that the community has generated were discussed quite widely, were quite generated a lot of conversation. The comments and a comment document will be sent to you, which is rather lengthy and is not sufficiently prepared yet for your viewing, but that will be available in a day or two.
Excuse me, Alderman Fisk has a question.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just curious, how many individuals have participated so far in all of the surveys, the workshops, online responses?
You know, I didn't total them, but we could do that quickly. It's probably 1,100 approximately.
Which is, I think, the highest number that we've seen. This is the third time we've had outreach. So I think, while I think we have additional work to be done on the online, I think we heard from, Lynn has made comments. We've heard from other members of the community. It's that balance between, overwhelming people with information to educate them, to get opinions, but then still make it accessible to people. So I think certainly the online respondents would indicate we did a better job of that by sheer numbers of people participating. But again, this is Evanston. Everyone has a better way of doing things, and I think what we've tried to do is, balance a lot of competing factors, the resources spent on the process, the time involved, all those things together. But I think, as Lynn has said, I think we can synthesize a number of messages, and that was the whole point, is to have those messages communicated not by just one person coming to a microphone at a council meeting to say what they want to say, but to giving as many people as possible an opportunity to participate. And I think we can claim at least some moderate success there, and my hope is this whole concept of Engage Evanston is something we continue to do. It's not something that just happens with the budget, but is an ongoing process, and hopefully as people become familiar with the ability to participate in these sort of exercises, those numbers will increase. I think we have residents that are very plugged in online. We have residents that aren't plugged in at all, and I think we have to be respectful to both, and paper survey versus an online survey, making both available, I think seems to work. Certainly even the paper survey numbers were as high, certainly higher than I would have expected, and certainly higher than anything we had done previously, having people actually fill something out and having to return it to us. So, if there's other questions, Madam Mayor?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been very helpful.
That concludes. Marty had a 35-slide presentation that he's very sorry. He had beautiful graphs and charts this morning that got cut out, and then additional slides that got cut at 5 o'clock, and now, unfortunately, we talked about sausage making before earlier this evening, and it was very tasty sausage. So, Madam Mayor, that concludes item SP1.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you, City Manager. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda?
Right. I know that nobody wants anything off the consent agenda. All right. First item on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor, is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting September 12, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting September 19. Under Administration and Public Works, the committee asks your approval for the payroll through September 11, $2,595,718.06. The bills through September 27, $4,125,553.02. The Administration and Public Works Committee asks your approval of sole source purchase of David Arm street light replacement fixtures from American Induction Technologies. The cost of this program has been altered, not the cost, but the distribution of funds has been altered just in a minor way, so I'm not going to take it off the consent agenda. The money is going to come from the Capital Improvement Fund Streetlight Upgrade Program in the amount of $60,640. Funded by the Economic Development Fund in the amount of $2,560, the West Evanston TIF Fund in the amount of $37,120, and the Washington National TIF in the amount of $7,680. Next, the committee asks your approval of change order number 1 to the 2011 50/50 sidewalk and curb replacement program in the amount of $32,750. The change order will allow an additional 42 homeowners to participate in this year's program. Funding is from the Special Assessment Fund. We ask your approval to accept and place on file the 2010-11 audited annual financial report. The Council is asked to approve Resolution 55R11 to accept grant awards for the maximum award amount of $42,528.50 from the Age Options in order to award a contract to help fund a senior meal congregate program at the Levy Senior Center and the Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center. In conjunction with that, your approval is requested to give a contract award to Catholic Charities Lunch and More for Senior Meal Food Program from October 1st through October 1st, 2011 through September 30th, 2012, in an amount not to exceed $4.15 per lunch meal. The program will be reimbursed through a grant from the Age Options and with an estimated city funding of only $13,000. Next item is has been requested to be removed from the agenda. A9, Resolution 56R11. The committee recommends your approval of the proposed resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the construction funding agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for the Chicago Avenue Streetscape Project, South Boulevard to Main. Funding will be provided by a federal Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant in the amount of $800,460 and CIP funding of $201,141 for the streetscape. Next item is been removed. A11, A11 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Thank you. Ordinance 69011, we ask your approval for the sale of surplus fleet vehicles owned by the city of Evanston through Obanoff Auction Service Municipal Equipment Auction. Ordinance 65011 amends subsection 3560 of the City Code to increase the number of Class O liquor licenses from 2 to 3 to permit the issuance. I'm going to take this off. I'm sorry. I forgot to note that. A14 is Ordinance 7211. We ask your approval to adopt Ordinance 72011, which decreases the number of Class D liquor licenses due to a change in license class for Chef Station. This was introduced at the last meeting. Ordinance 73011 is the adoption of amending subsection 356C of the City Code to increase the number of Class C liquor licenses due to a change in license class for Peter Mills Production, DBA, Chef Station at 915 Davis Street. The committee asks your approval to adopt the amendment of section 356K of the City Code to increase the number of Class K licenses. Is this off the consent agenda? Did Alderman Nguyen leave?
I believe it was her intent to have it off.
Have it off. I'm gonna take this off, and perhaps the committee chair can move to hold it. Sorry. A17 is Ordinance 76011. We request your approval amending Section 101116 of the City Code to update the designated truck routes throughout the city. Ordinance 37011 is a recommendation to consider Ordinance 37011 by which the City Council would amend 1013 and 10192 and delete 101113 Schedule 13 to establish a citywide 8,000-pound weight limit on city streets unless otherwise designated. The citywide 8,000-pound limit will not apply to streets under the jurisdiction of IDOT, city-designated truck routes, or prohibited truck routes. This was introduced September 12. We ask your approval for Ordinance, 50011, and the city attorney suggests that I say the following. We move to request that you adopt Ordinance 50011, the provisional ordinance related to amendments to Title 3 and 7 of the Evanston City Code. Under Planning and Development, this is only for introduction, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the audience. This is P1, Ordinance 80011. The Planning and Development Committee recommends introduction, amending the approved plan development of 1722 Central Street. Under P3, granting a special use for a Type 2 restaurant at 1701 Sherman Avenue in the downtown 2. This is Pret a Manger. This is a request for a special use, and this is for action tonight. Human Services, is this on or off? H1, Ordinance 52011, having to do with amending the city code on dogs, cats, animals, and fowls, is off the consent agenda. For appointment to the Library Board, Sandra Smith. Nomination to the Zoning Board of Appeal, Andrew Gallimore. And the Zoning Board of Appeals new chair, Lori Summers. Madam Mayor, with that, I move the consent agenda.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
8-0. The consent agenda passes. Alderman Holmes, could we have a report from Administration and Public Works?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. A11, a resolution 53-R-11 authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement for the installation of solar canopies and electric vehicle charging station. I would move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was an amendment. That's the two parking lots that were proposed was parking lot number 27 and 4, and we changed it to parking lot number 3 and 4. That was the amendment.
Thank you.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to, well, first of all, I'd like to ask a question because the resolution itself does not specifically refer to which parking lots are included. And would the amendment be in addition to that resolution or an insertion of new wording?
This clarification.
It was, you mean in terms of which parking lots? I thought.
Okay, the resolution itself that we're being asked to vote on does not identify which two parking lots are going to be, doesn't specify which two parking lots. And if we are specifying, so City Manager, could you answer that question for me?
Yes, Alderman Alderman Fisk, members of the council. The resolution, which is on page 211 of your packet, only authorizes me to execute an agreement. The agreement that is attached refers to the locations that would be identified through an attachment, and those attachments were described earlier in the staff report beginning on page 208. So while the resolution only provides authorization to sign, I would take direction through the minute order from the council on the location. So my understanding is from the staff report that the direction would be those two locations. The committee has now proposed different locations. So it's really up to the council. If they approve the item with the direction from the committee as amended, then we would go forward with 3 and 4.
I would be happy to support the resolution as long as it did not include parking lot number 3. At the Parking and Transportation Committee meeting, when we discussed this, there was a lot of concern about how heavily used parking lot number 3 is. It serves a number of organizations on that block as well as surrounding properties. I think it's one of the higher utilized parking lots in the downtown. And so through the discussion at parking, we came up with Lot 27, which would actually allow for more vehicles and which is also closer to transportation. So that was our thought. The other problem that I have with including parking lot 3 at this moment is that from the material that has been noticed to the public, they assumed from that material online that we were going to be approving parking the lot 27 and lot number 4. So a number of people who objected to parking lot 3 were obviously not here tonight to address the council. Therefore, what I would like to do is I would like to authorize the city manager to execute the license agreement for 2 lots. And if Alderman Grover is fine with lot number 4, that we go ahead with lot number 4. However, I would like to hold lot number 3 until the next meeting to allow me to go back to the residents and the business owners in the area and discuss that with them, because there's a number of people on Chicago Avenue, including the Women's Club, that rely on that lot, and who I'm afraid would be concerned if we went ahead and did this without proper notice to them. So that's my what's amendment? Is it an amendment, or what would it be called?
Suggestion.
Suggestion, I guess.
Yeah, a suggestion.
I think it sounds reasonable, actually.
A prudent suggestion is what we're calling it.
Do we vote on prudent suggestions, or how do we get seconds for prudent suggestions, or?
Do you want it as a friendly amendment to?
Yes, a very friendly amendment. Thank you.
Alderman Grove? What?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think at the committee level, we did have discussion.
I'm sorry, Alderman Grove or Alderman Nguyen had her light on first.
Oh, please.
Sorry,
Alderman
my
Nguyen.
fault.
I'm sorry, Alderman Grover, I didn't mean to be so abrupt there. But I did want to say that as at Parking and Transportation, we had a discussion with the IGO representative about the time sensitivity of this, and he expressed to us that if we needed, and he would be happy to go forward with, he would like it to move forward as quickly as possible if one portion of this had to wait until the next meeting, because he wasn't quite sure he could get answers back to us on, I think it was lot 27, by tonight's meeting, that it would be possible to wait till the October 8th meeting. So I think that it would be acceptable from IGO's standpoint to, from our understanding from last week's, Ms. Fagan's here, is that that if we could split it, I think it would be accommodating to Alderman Fisk's constituents, because when we left the Parking and Transportation meeting, we left it as that we were moving forward with Lot 27 and Lot 4.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I believe the IGO CEO is here and may be able to fill us in on the timeliness issue, the desirability or lack of desirability of the proposed Lot 27, and why Lot 3 is a good option for this installation. This is Sharon Feigen from IGO. And I hope we can approve at least, I don't know who wouldn't want an IGO installation, the solar panels and the canopy in a parking lot in any neighborhood, and I hope we can for sure go forward with the one in Lot 4, because it's not my decision, it belongs to all of you.
Thank you. And I just want to first say that, as an Evanston resident for the last 25 years, I really appreciate all of you. I mean, it's very late at night, and I'm really impressed that everybody continues on. So thank you. As far as the solar canopies, I know there was a discussion at the parking committee meeting, and then we had a discussion about it, and that the lot, the post office lot, is not, it's too risky a lot, basically, for us in terms of once we put in the solar canopy, that we're committed to that location, for 10 years probably. And we haven't done very well over in that area. We had a couple cars over there, and we actually pulled them. So we had, prior to that meeting, we had done an analysis and thought that the library parking lot would work very well. We know that we have a lot of members, both business members in the downtown and residential members as well. So we had the discussion earlier this evening about that. As far as timing, we are obligated to spend all the money and get the canopies constructed this year. And we're on a really, really short timeline on that. So we have, I've wanted IGO to be in Evanston, and I really want the solar canopies to be in Evanston, but we have funding for 18 canopies, and we've got to get the signed contracts and, proceed. And we have a number of them, and I've been kind of holding out to make sure we could have some in Evanston, but I don't know. If it waits till October, I'm not sure that we'll still have, we're going to have to go ahead with whatever we can get done as quickly as possible.
Alderman Nguyen?
Well, I was going to go ahead and move that we accept the IGO, that we direct the city manager to sign, to move forward with negotiating with IGO for a solar canopy for parking lot 27. Right now. We get that.
We're not going to be able to.
Oh, I'm sorry, not 27, lot 4. I had it mixed up.
It's 11 at night, that's
Yeah,
why.
So,
And one other to be determined.
All right, for Lot 4 and one other to be determined, is
Yes.
that? All right. All right, that's been moved. Is it seconded?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to proceed with Lot 4 and one other to be determined. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor to be named.
The ayes have it.
So, Madam Mayor, so I'm clear that you've just adopted the appropriate resolution authorizing me to execute the agreement. We will move forward with that, with the one lot as you've agreed to, and then come back to the full council, come back through AMPW for the location. What would you like to refer to the location back to AP, have full council? Okay, so we will put on full council for your next full council meeting, which is on October the 10th. In the meantime, we will finish the agreement with IGO and execute it and move forward.
I apologize. Alderman Fisk, did you have something more you wanted to say? Okay. Alderman Holmes?
Yes. 813, ordinance 65-0-11, amending subsection 3-5-6-0 of the city code to increase the number of Class O liquor licenses from 2 to 3 to permit issuance to Aldi's Incorporated at 2211 Oakton Street. I would move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I fully support this ordinance and the issuance of a liquor license to Aldi's. However, I read the packet information last meeting and this meeting, and the minutes of your Liquor Control Commission, and found it very interesting, the concern your commission had, as well as the chief of police, regarding thefts of liquor from various stores in Evanston, and your concern going forward for Aldi's. So I was concerned about shoplifting at Aldi's. And I asked the chief of police to give me a report on the number of police calls and shoplifting reports at Aldi's since they've been open. And I was pretty amazed to hear his report that there have been absolutely no reports from Aldi's regarding shoplifting. Now, under normal circumstances, we would say, what a wonderful thing, that there's no shoplifting at this store. However, I find it absolutely impossible to believe that there is no shoplifting at Aldi's. So the reason I rise is to point out to you that the only reason to be concerned about thefts is if they're reported. And if Aldi's does not have a policy of reporting shoplifting, we need to address that with them. So once we pass this, I think we ought to confront their organization and find out what their policy is about reporting thefts. Because if they don't have any thefts, I think they might be the only store over 150 square feet in the city of Evanston that's never had any issues with shoplifting.
It would be nice to think that, but I thank you for finding that out.
On the other hand, if they absolutely have a policy of reporting shoplifting and they've never had a case, we need to find out what forms of prevention they are using so that we can share it with all the other stores.
Good German company.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Braithwaite.
Just one of the concerns I wanted to voice is when I looked through the packet, I saw the placement of the alcohol going right in front of the entry door, and it wasn't really clear to me just how they were going to secure that. I'm not an expert in the layout of a retail store, but it just seemed a bit puzzling that they would put the alcohol directly in front of the entry, which would probably make
But they were going to move it.
Oh, they did? Well,
Yeah,
then I
move
guess the question was, where were they going to move it to?
To the east wall, I think they said.
It's in the
Have that in
blueprint.
writing, or?
It's in the blueprint somewhere.
Yeah, when I went through the...
Okay. Being on my iPad, I don't know that it's in this packet, but it certainly was in some pile of the paper that I went through, not at 11:30 at night. Sorry, Alderman Braithwaite. But it is there, and the chief, being our expert, did okay it, and it was moved from a location that he felt was not all right. So I think what you're looking at is their first proposal. I'm sorry, are we ready to vote? City Clerk, would you call the roll?
It's 8:13, right?
A13, an ordinance permitting issuance to Aldi Incorporated of a Class O liquor license.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Did y'all say yes?
Unanimous.
Yes.
Did Wilson, did you say yes? Okay, thank you. 8-0.
8-0, the motion passes.
A16, ordinance 74-0-11, amending subsection 3-5-6K of the city code to increase the number of of Class K liquor license from 1 to 2 to permit issuance to Sodeco America LLC at 1501 Central Street. I would move approval.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah, Alderman Nguyen?
I would like to hold this.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to hold it. Do you have a time or?
Time certain.
Okay.
Uncertain time.
All right. Do we even vote on that?
No.
We just do it?
No vote.
All right. It is held. Alderman Holmes, does that conclude your
That
report?
concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, indefinite, right?
Yeah, thank you. And Planning and Development, there's no report. Alderman Wilson, you don't have anything on P&D. Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is H1 Ordinance 52011, amending certain provisions of Title IX, Chapter 4 of the Evanston City Code, Dogs, Cats, Animals, and Fowl. This was held at the request of an alderman at the last meeting. At that time, do I make a motion to? Yeah, I think I made a motion at the last meeting. Do I make another motion?
Do what?
To
Yeah.
approve with
Go.
amendments?
Approve it, yes.
Okay, I thought I had done that last time.
Amendments have to be moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
My question was, since I moved this at the last meeting, do I have to move it again?
I'm not sure what amendments you're moving.
Moving, yeah.
Okay, I mean, the whole thing, the whole,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So I move approval, and then I want to make some amendments.
Been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance amending the city code, dogs, cats, animals, and fowl.
The amendments are on Exhibit 3 of your packet, and basically these are two amendments. The first amendment is to provide an opportunity for the owner of a dog that has been designated as dangerous by the police chief to, at their own expense, provide a expert opinion on the temperament of the dog that will be considered as part of the police chief's packet in determining whether a dog should be designated as dangerous. So that's the first amendment, is to allow the owner at their own expense to submit such a report, and that the police chief will take that into consideration. The second amendment is to allow for due process, which is to allow for an appeal of that designation to circuit court. And this is where it gets a little bit sticky, because the law department threw something in here that I wasn't quite expecting, and that was that table that talks about Alternative 1 and Alternative 2. Because my understanding is that if we go with Alternative 2, and again, I'm not a lawyer here, I'm just guessing, that if it goes through, if instead of after the notice of violation, if we go to administrative adjudication, that the administrative adjudication process automatically allows for an appeal to circuit court. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's an automatic appeal to circuit court.
They have to file for it.
Oh, right. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And but the Alternative 1, which is, if we go with that, the notice of violation, the hearing by the police chief, and the determination by the police chief, would not allow for well, it would also allow an appeal pursuant to administrative review law, which I believe also allows for an appeal to circuit court, in which case this amendment is unnecessary. Am I interpreting this correctly?
Alderman Fisk, the floor amendment number, what we tried to do is indicate where the administrative review and the appeals may go. And based upon my understanding of the floor amendments that you are proposing, none of the floor amendments currently speak to what's listed in the chart, except for step 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where what we tried to do with the chart is essentially foreshadow what would be created if the Second Amendment were enacted.
I see. Okay.
We're trying to make it as clear as possible.
Okay, well, you confused me. In making it as clear as possible, I was confused. Okay, so if we pass the second one, which allows for someone to appeal to the circuit court, then we choose between Alternative 1 and Alternative 2? Is that, what action do you want us to take in terms of Alternative 1 and Alternative 2?
I'm not...
Do you want us to choose one of them, or
I don't think.
what are we being asked to do?
I will defer to my colleague who was intimately involved with the drafting.
Madam Mayor, City Manager, City Council members, the Alternative 1 and Alternative 2 are presented not as the status quo versus what a potential amendment would accomplish. Alternative 1 and Alternative 2 are part of a separate section of this memo that the Law Department created based on questions that we received from the chief and from individual aldermen with respect to the question of whether it would be advisable to use administrative adjudication instead of the current system whereby the chief of police is the one who makes the decision. So just to run through it briefly, Alderman Fisk, you're familiar with the floor amendments that you've proposed, and the one that you are currently discussing is floor amendment number 2, which is represented in this chart at step 6. If your floor amendment passes, then there will be an appeal pursuant to the administrative review law, that is, an appeal to the circuit court, no matter who makes the first level decision, whether it's the chief of police or whether it's administrative adjudication. What you've asked is to add this additional due process step so that there will always be an appeal, no matter who makes the first step.
Okay.
So that's what we've encapsulated, and that's step 6 represents your floor amendment. The bolded steps 3 and 4, which are alternatives 1 and 2, and I apologize, this wasn't an attempt to reduce this to a simple form. I realize that might not have been immediately obvious here. What alternative 1 would be is that more or less represents the status quo now, where you would have a hearing by the police chief and a determination by the police chief according to these due process steps and possibly including your floor amendment 1. Alternative 2 has never been proposed as legislation. However, it's frequently come up in the discussions, and that's why we decided it was worthy of putting in here in case anyone were curious about how this would look. We could send it to administrative adjudication instead of having the police chief make that determination. However, that would require an entirely separate amendment from one of the council members.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. That does simplify things now. So I would ask you to consider both alternatives. I think both are reasonable. Both actually protect the due process rights of persons whose dogs may be in the process of being designated as dangerous. I think they're reasonable. It's no further expense to the city. The burden is put on the dog owner. I think the police chief, if he were here, he would probably say he takes into consideration all of those steps that are in the code right now. But I would like to reassure folks that they are not cut out of the process, that they do have an opportunity to participate in the process. And I think that the appeal to circuit court is absolutely necessary to ensure due process. And I think we would be making a bad mistake if we didn't include that.
Alderman Grover?
Do I need to get a second on? I've just made an amendment then.
I'm sorry.
So I need a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you. I think it's an additional courtesy. I'm reluctant to proceed passing the ordinance tonight without the input from our other colleague who also had a heavy hand in the drafting of the ordinance, Alderman Burris. And would really like her input on it as well. And it sounds like I just don't want to deal with tonight, but deal with tomorrow what we could deal with tonight. But I'd like Alderman Burris to be part of this discussion as well. So I thank you for this. The memo's great. It really helped me understand where we've been and where we're going with the dangerous dog ordinance. Thank you very much. And thank you, Alderman Fisk, for all your assistance as well. But I'd rather we do this the next time, and I know Alderman Burris will be.
Does that table this, or does that? No, and actually, at the next Human Services Committee, which is October 3rd, a week from tonight, we're going to be considering amending the ordinance even further to address problem pet ownership, which is where this issue should have been in the first place.
But that's where it started.
Problem pet.
We don't have any. What we're doing. Well, never mind.
I'm asking to table this to our next meeting.
But not back to the council.
Back to council on this ordinance, dangerous dog ordinance, dangerous dog ordinance.
It's problem pet ownership, not dangerous pet owners. Although I suppose they can get dangerous.
Alderman Nguyen?
Could I make two comments? I support the ordinance. I think it's a very good idea. In section 3, subsection 5.
Point of order. I'm sorry.
It's tabled, but she's just making two comments.
I'd like to make two comments because I don't think it's clear. In Section 3, subsection 5, it says, prior to a decision, an evaluation will be performed. I don't think we're saying that it will be performed. I said I think we want to make it so that it can be performed. No, it says will.
Oh, you're on Exhibit 2.
Oh, okay,
you
so
on
my,
Exhibit
all right,
2?
okay, so my question is, I don't necessarily think that every owner will have to perform one, has to pay for one. If they decide they don't want to, then that's fine. Okay, so that's not how it reads. And then the other thing is, I think there should be a time limit in which they have to, if they're going to do that, they have to do it. And there isn't one here. That's my only other comment.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. All right. Since we are not dealing with that tonight, it has been tabled. We are at call awards. And Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to first of all thank Robert Creamer, who's been chair of ZBA for a long time, and I believe he is stepping down, and his replacement we voted on tonight. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, you are.
And I think he's been a wealth of knowledge for ZBA and those of us who have watched issues come before ZBA from time to time. I wanted to say something personally about. First of all, I wanted to thank Alderman Rainey for her efforts to and kind words in regard to my family, and I appreciate that. As those of you who have followed politics in Evanston know, I ran for First Ward Alderman to ensure that everyone would have a place at the table, and that I promised everyone that, given my long history of working with developers, especially on the Kendall College property, that when I met with developers, they were going to know about it. And when I came out of a meeting with developers, they were going to know what happened. And that's exactly what's happened. That's something that I haven't forgotten. It's something that I do all the time. People who know me and have worked with me understand that. It's very difficult when people stand up and make attacks against me and or my family and don't bother coming to ward meetings or reaching out to me directly. I'm absolutely accessible, and over the past few years, I've given, and so has my husband, given hours and hours and hours and hours of time to the two individuals who come to speak every week in front of us. And it's beyond me why they insist on pursuing this. 7 years ago, was it, that the Kendall College property got started? We started talking about rezoning that property, and I was somebody sitting in the audience along with my neighbors. And we worked very, very, very hard on that. And the achievement of R1 zoning on that site was just an incredible relief, an incredible victory for the single-family neighborhood that surrounds Kendall. And as part of that, I've put the last 2 years an emphasis on what we can do to save the trees that currently exist at Kendall. And through the help of city staff and a meeting that they held that I invited myself to, that the council was good enough to allow me to have, and I remember Alderman Rady wanted to vote that night, and I pleaded with the council, please, to let us have a meeting. And you allowed us to have the meeting, so I joined staff to discuss with the developer what we might do to save the trees over there, especially the oaks on Lincoln. And I'm really proud of that. And by stopping that alley a little bit before Lincoln, we saved a 200-year-old oak. And it's one that I walk by every day, several times, and I look up to it, and I say to my husband, "That's my tree," because it's beautiful and it's there, and I'm very proud. In the discussions with the developer, I think that staff and conversation that I had with them at the meeting that we requested was always what's going to happen to the other plants that are on that site. Some of them are valuable, and some of them can be transplanted. And I asked a long time ago, isn't it possible, wouldn't you consider donating those to city parks? We have a lot of city parks who have had lost trees, and especially with the storms this year. And that wasn't a closed-door meeting. That's ridiculous. It was a communication between staff and the developer based on a request I had made over a year ago. And again, I'm very happy that the developer agreed to donate. That doesn't mean we're going to be removing 200-year-old trees. You can't do that, especially oaks. You just can't transplant oaks. But we've protected those oaks in other ways as best we can on a piece of private property. The last thing I want to say about this, well, two more things real quickly. The neighbors have been incredibly supportive of this. And unfortunately, the two individuals that show up tonight do not communicate with the board of Kendall Neighbors on this. And I'm going to encourage Kendall Neighbors to reach out to them and see if there isn't any dialogue that can be started there. Because Kendall Neighbors was formed because of the Kendall College development and rezoning. I have not heard from one other person who's unhappy about anything that's transpired at Kendall. And I think some months ago, there might have been one or two people who showed up who actually told you that or maybe communicated with you in other ways about that. But there is not anyone out there who is unhappy with this. And the willingness of the community to come together and actually raise some money as a gesture to offset the cost of transplanting some of the smaller ornamental trees or shrubs, I think was, again, a very, very nice thing for them to do. In regard to my family, I'm extremely proud of all of them. I'm especially proud of my son. Every time something from Holland and Knight is mentioned here at City Council, I tell all of you that he works for Holland and Knight. He does not work on Evanston issues, and he is not an equity partner in Holland and Knight. He is an associate. He earns money from those clients that he works with and does not benefit from the general revenue that's brought into the firm. I'm sorry I have to tell you all this, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I look forward to the Ethics Board hearing, and hopefully the airing there will be the end of this. So, one last thing. I'm really sorry. I'm going to stand up here for 15 minutes now. I wanted to tell, in terms of transparency, tell you all about something positive that's happened in the past couple of weeks. I've been thinking, as I have made my annual tennis trek to Mason, Ohio, that why can't we do this here in Evanston? It's a wonderful professional tennis event that, in that small little community of 30,000 people, attracts 233,000 attendees in 1 week, raises scads of money, has a purse of over $3 million. The top tennis professionals come and play there. And I was doing some figuring, and if we could do that with Northwestern's facilities, we would make a lot of money only on our ticket revenue. We would make a minimum of $500,000 and possibly upwards of $1.5 million just on ticket revenue. And what's nice about the event is that I think it would fit in really well with Evanston. It is a community event where there is incredible sponsorships. I don't see that the city of Evanston would have to put any money into this. And the more I thought about it, I thought, wow, I'm going to email Morty Shapiro and ask him about this. And I did. And he said, wow, that sounds like a really good idea. Why don't you talk to Jim Phillips? And so Jim Phillips and I met the other day with staff, and just to find out whether the facilities were there and possibly if something like this could work. And there's interest on all sides, I think. And so Alderman Grover, I hope you'll come and look at tennis courts with me over the next couple of weeks over at Northwestern. And this will take a couple of years to do. The USTA, whether we have a WTA event, which is women, or an ATP event, which is men, has partnered with other universities across the country, including Yale and Wake Forest and Stanford. So there's there's some precedent for this working in college communities. There is no other professional tennis event in the Chicagoland area. And I just think we're missing by not having it. Indianapolis just had to give up their event, and I think we should do whatever we can to find out whether this is something that could work in Evanston. So, Madam Mayor, I mentioned this to you the other day, but I'm hoping that you'll consider appointing a committee that includes people from ECTA, the Evanston Community Tennis Association, and maybe the rec board, and city staff, and the affected aldermen, and I hope you'll include me, and to continue the conversations with Northwestern to see where this might go. This is a really good opportunity, and one that would be a really nice match for Evanston. So just wanted to share that all with you. Thanks.
I'd be happy to appoint you to the committee. Alderman Braithwaite.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to announce that Alderman Wilson and I will be holding a joint meeting at Nichols School on Tuesday, October 4th, to discuss the viaduct projects that will be taking place starting this fall. Actually, they're beginning to take place. The viaducts at Greenleaf, Dempster, and Grove will be replaced starting this fall. So we're going to have the CTAs. We'll have to hope on the metro, but the CTAs are the most important right now. We're having this meeting at Nichols School, and starting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, October 4th. And we're urging everyone in the surrounding community to come and join us, ask all the questions, learn about what's going to be happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Tendem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief announcement that there will be a combined 6th and 7th Ward meeting on November 17th. We'll be introducing to much of the 7th Ward and part of the 6th Ward Daniel Biss, the new rep in Springfield for that area, and also the city manager will be joining us that night to discuss the events that occurred during the budget process. Thank you.
Alderman Grover?
Yes, ma'am. Wednesday, October 5th, is International Walk to School Day. Did you know that congestion around our schools increases 25% during arrival and dismissal times? If we can get more students to walk, the air will be cleaner, our children will be fitter, and the streets will be less crowded. To sexual politics, did I get your attention? If you had any doubts about the vaccine against HPV, which causes cancer in adults or can cause cancer in adults, the school-based health center at Evanston Township High School is indeed offering the HPV vaccination to its students. Right now there's a cost involved, and I am hoping and thank in advance Yvonne Thomas, our health director, for her efforts to secure funding to provide free vaccinations to our medically qualified students, those who are qualified for free and reduced lunch, at the school-based health center at the high school. And I can also report that my 3 children, all boys who have been vaccinated against HPV, none of them have caught mental retardation. And lastly, I have to say, lastly, I was at a friend's house a couple weeks ago, and they had this poem taped on the refrigerator written by their daughter, Therese, a former FAM player, now a junior in high school. And if you'll please indulge me. Evanston, Heavenston, city of churches, the city of homes, prosperous, beautiful, busy, the People's Republic of Evanston. And yet I hear about the graffiti under the L tracks and the shootings and the fights at the high school basketball games. And I know about the power struggles in politics, the cheating and subterfuge, the manipulation all to gain an advantage. And I glimpse the divide so far 5 blocks away across the cafeteria right next to me. I tire of the polar opposite stereotypes, but try to find another city with violence and tries just as aggressively to end it. Find coaches who will lose sleep over victory while transforming their players into responsible adults. Find a school where it is unusual to see a white cheerleader and they will braid her hair just like theirs. Arrogant and ravishing, rash and determined, bridging gaps that shouldn't be there, denying and trying,
Scrappy and undaunted, proud of the disadvantage, we will show you the lighthouse, the mountain, the forest, movie sets, explosive stadiums, noble parades, Central, Dempster, Dodge, Maine, Howard, Chicago, where the people rule. Real people, real beauty, real pain, real happiness, real city, my city. Thank you, Therese.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Hard to follow that. Thank you. I think we have a minor problem with the professional tennis match. At one time, there was an ordinance passed that restricts professional sports at Ryan Field. And wouldn't that be a good one to overturn? All right. So I would refer an ordinance regarding the repeal of that ordinance. Janad Rizki did not consult with me before speaking here tonight, but my first item on the call of the wards was to make a recommendation regarding one of his criticisms, and that is, I believe this council should have a staff-generated cost-benefit analysis of the three matters that came before the Oakton Development Committee, and that is retail, public works usage, and indoor sports. So if we could see what the dollars are for those three options, that would be great. On October 1st at St. Nick's School will be the very first ever Ridgeville fundraiser, the very first ever. So hopefully everybody will go, and getting ready for October 2nd, which is Sunday, Bike the Ridge, Howard Street and Ridge at 9 a.m. Be there or be square. There will be 3 food trucks present. Bring cash. We'll have sweet chai ride, which is all sweets, cupcakes, scones, donuts, etc. We'll have Hummingbird that will do breakfast sandwiches, and we will have Crave for later in the morning, hot dogs, Italian beef, etc. Thank you very much.
Alderman Rainey, how quickly did you want that analysis done?
Before we're presented with any lease or anything. I'm not in any rush.
Okay.
I mean, it's just that I want it before we agree to a lease.
Okay.
Because we should have information, that's all. Not tomorrow morning at 9, that's for sure.
I would like to, I'm sorry, I forgot to say one thing in my comments at the beginning because I don't think I wanted to remember this, but I'd like to extend my condolences to Evelyn Orange. Bob Orange died, one of our greatest volunteers and a truly, truly wonderful person. He was always around at every volunteer opportunity, and and he was always very cheerful and very positive, and we will all miss him.
This is recent?
Yes.
Died last week. The luncheon was on Saturday at Pioneer Prairie Moon.
Would someone like to make a motion? Alderman Wilson.
Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding real estate, litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C5, C6, C11, and C21.
Second.
City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes. Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. 8-0.
8-0. We are heading for executive session. If my knee can still get up.